Alright everybody, what's going on? It's Thundershot, and I am here today with a very special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Alrighty guys, it is Qaaman here today.
And what are we talking about today, Mr. Qaaman?
Well, I have not done a Xenoverse topic on my channel directly, and I felt that we should discuss specifically as to whether or not Dragon Ball Xenoverse will live up to the hype or not in a couple of weeks as the game is coming around.
Alright, so we got a hype video on our hands, and it's kind of been up and down with Xenoverse for a while. When the game first got announced, it was like, it's there, but it's a Dragon Ball game. They failed us lately. I don't know if you were very familiar with Battle of Z, Qaaman, but Battle of Z was not a very good game. And I also don't know if you're very familiar with Ultimate Tenkaichi, but Ultimate Tenkaichi was not a good game. So we hear Dragon Ball Z games coming out, and we're like, oh, okay, it's a Dragon Ball Z game. Let's hope this one's good. And the more we found out about it, the more we found out what was going to be in it. Create a character gets revealed. The timeline changing gets revealed. There's going to be a new boss. Come to find out there's a couple new characters getting introduced. And all this stuff, and the hype builds up and up and up. And then after that, when they started actually revealing more and more things, the full character roster, it's good, it's solid, but for a while we thought it was going to be awful, so that dies down a little bit. Non-destructible environments, that hurts it a little bit. I mean, certain other things, it kind of dies down a little bit. But what kind of hype do you think we have left for Xenoverse? How pumped are you for it right now?
Well, the one thing that I was talking to Dino the other day about off the air was, I think that the story mode really intrigues me. And the reason why I say this, Thundershot, is because we've played a lot of Dragon Ball Z games in our lives, and one thing is that essentially every game kind of just retells the same story of Dragon Ball Z, and obviously people who are big fans, would be critical of a game if, they don't do something that directly happened, or like they do it differently, or like showing a fight that never happened. But what I find interesting about Xenoverse is that they kind of like said, scrap this, let's go in a completely new direction, and let's just completely create our own storyline of Dragon Ball Z, which completely saves them from all of that pure story criticism that a lot of Dragon Ball Z games have. And I think that because of this unique story, especially a guy who is a lot into time travel and all that, I think this storyline is really something that can impact the game too, in addition to what you were telling me the other day about the ability to custom make your characters and all the different options and stuff, and the balances that they have in the system. So I think that's one thing that I'm really looking forward to.
And you do not think that that will disappoint you, right? You think the story mode will live up to your expectation?
Definitely, because from what I've been hearing from you guys and how well you guys have been reporting it, I'm very stoked for the story mode specifically.
Yeah, now the one thing about the story mode that kind of gets me a little bit is that it is going to be one linear storyline, which you can't fault a game for having a linear storyline. Some of us prefer the open world or maybe pick your own destiny style, but you can't fault a game for having a linear storyline. So on one sense, you're going to play through the game one time and you're going to know the story mode, and from what I've gathered, it's going to be the same way every single time you play through it, no matter what kind of character you choose. On the other hand, there are 5 different races in there. You can pick a different character. There's male and female on some of them, and you can do your attributes completely different. Maybe this time I want to see if I can be the most defensive person in the world. So I'm going to pick a Namekian, and every stat I have is going to be in defense, so that I won't do damage, but they'll never be able to hurt me. Or next time you want to be a straight key character and try to kill them as fast as possible. So in another way, you will be able to play through the game multiple times and have a different experience each time. It's just up to preference. So I'm hoping that that will be as diverse as I'm hoping it is. But do you have any thoughts about maybe games getting overhyped? Do you think, let's just ask the question now, do you think Xenoverse is an overhyped game?
Well, to some degree, because we haven't seen a Dragon Ball Z game like this, I think that gives it natural hype that a lot of other Dragon Ball Z games don't. I mean, Thundershot, I'm sure you agree with me, about a year and a half ago, however long it was, where Ultimate Tenkaichi was coming around, that was a very overhyped game, and it never lived up to its expectations. I played it a little bit, and I just didn't like the autopilot system, where I basically like press 2 buttons and I do like a bunch of combos. I felt like I wasn't even fighting. So when you compare that with Xenoverse, I think that because of its just nature itself, I think that makes the game overhyped, but in some ways I kind of feel like it's deserving of it because of the fact that it's going in such a different direction. Now, yes, they're not being as conventional as usual. I really like beam struggles. I understand why they couldn't put them in. I like completely destructive environments, but I think that this whole system that they have put in place, especially the character creation and the way you said how there's so many checks and balances in terms of, having a character who's more defensive versus offensive, I think that makes the playing field really fun. And we were talking the other day in regards to Saiyans and how, like, well, it would be obvious that everybody would want to be a Saiyan because they'd be too strong. So then they kind of balanced it out by having, Namex being a little bit more defensive, and I think that that's one thing that the game really has going for it.
Yeah, and just to clear it up there, I'm sure people have typed angry comments already. Ultimate Tenkaichi was the last one to have character customization, and it came out in 2011. Battle of Z was the one that came out about a year ago. Ultimate Tenkaichi had character customization, and the trailer for it looked sick, and the gameplay actually looked sick. Actually looked amazing, but we didn't get it to see it until it was in your hands, and once it was in your hands, you got to find out this is a bad game. Very limited in character customization, all this stuff. But what we already know about Xenoverse with how much they're showing is that's not going to happen with Xenoverse. We got to play it in a beta, and the beta was actually really fun. The gameplay looked promising. We've seen already all the customizationable options and a lot of characters that we're getting and things like that. We know that the story mode is going to be fantastic, so it's all building up. And I honestly don't plan to be disappointed in this. And I'm going to go ahead and say my final answer here is Xenoverse going to be overhyped. My guess, it's kind of hard. It entirely relies on the person. It depends on how hyped you're going to be about a game. One game, like from a gamer's perspective, a game that comes to mind that came out this past year that was not a bad game, but everyone says it was crap because it was, quotation marks, overhyped. It's only overhyped if you let yourself overhype it, was Destiny. Destiny was a hugely anticipated game, and everyone thought it was going to be one of the greatest games of all time, and you can't do that. You can't think to yourself, this is going to be the best game of all time. You're setting yourself up for disappointment. At the bottom line, at the end of the day, this game will 100% be worth my $60, and I think that's how most people should look at it. If it's going to be worth your $60, it's not a bad game.
Well, specifically as me as a PC gamer, what I really look forward to is having basically one of the biggest games ever for Dragon Ball Z on PC. I think that's one thing that really got me into it, because originally Thundershot, I remember you guys were kind of making fun of me a little bit because, originally they didn't announce that Xenoverse was actually going to come out for PC, and I was kind of like, no game for me. And then they said PC, and I was like, yes, finally I get my game. And I think that because of that, I haven't been this excited for a game, with the exception of Mortal Kombat X, which I'm also really excited for. And because of this and my history of playing Dragon Ball Z games, I want to ask you this. 3 questions, Thundershot. Will it surpass Budokai Tenkaichi 3, Battle of Z, or the original Budokai series in terms of entertainment to you?
In terms of entertainment to me, it will definitely pass Battle of Z. It will probably pass the Budokai series, not because the Budokai series is bad, not because I didn't get my fair share of entertainment, but once the 3D fighters came out, I really, I've gone back and played the HD Remastered Collection, not a lot, but I have. Once the 3D fighters came out, I never really went back to that. I never really went back to Budokai as much. I prefer the 3D fighting style more. Budokai Tenkaichi 3 is a hard one. That's a really hard one. Will it pass it in terms of sales? It would be really good for Xenoverse if it passed it in terms of sales. Budokai Tenkaichi 3 sold, I believe, well over 3 million copies, and that would be nuts if it did that. So I don't know about that. It'll be a stretch. Will it go down as one of the greatest games in Dragon Ball Z history? If it does, right now at least, it's because it has a lot of big advantages. It's the first one to come out on the PS4. It's the first one to hit next gen or current gen, I guess now. Consoles in the PS4 and Xbox One. It's got all this online play that hasn't really been... It was in Battle of Z, but Battle of Z was bad. It was in Ultimate Tenkaichi, but Ultimate Tenkaichi was bad. But the online for this one looks really promising. You can do missions with your friends. You can do side quests with your friends. You can fight your friends and set up all 3v3 battles. There's going to be online tournaments. So I think his replayability is going to be insane in that, and in being able to create your character. So I do think if it doesn't go down as the best, it will go down as one of the best Dragon Ball Z games that ever got spit out.
Well, my final question for you, Thundershot, and for the rest of you in the comment section is this. How well do you think the actual downloadable content that will happen from time to time, how do you think that will affect the sales and the game itself as compared to others?
That's one of the things that I dislike about it, is because they have downloadable content pre-installed on the disc, which means that they made stuff that they could have just given us, but they're like, no, we're going to charge you extra for the game, pretty much. We're going to charge you extra for part of the game that's already in there. So that does kind of cheese me. The DLC is good. The thing with the DLC, though, is it doesn't introduce anything major. It's not new modes. I believe it's not new stages, but I might be wrong on that one in the future. I don't know. But what it gives you is a couple more customization options. and a couple more like GT characters. So the DLC is going to be all right. I'm going to get it because at max it'll be $20, $30 once it's all said and done. If you buy the season pass, it's only going to be $20 and not anymore. So no, I think the DLC will be okay. What about you?
Well, because of the fact that we've never really seen a game that really had this much downloadable content, and I think the fact, I mean, even though people really aren't big fans of GT, the fact that, you know, you can play with Super Saiyan 4s and ultimately put an end to the God versus Super Saiyan 4 discussion based off of Xenoverse, I think that's one thing that's really going to separate this game, because if they ever decide to, like, create new characters and add them to the game, this makes this game, like, almost like a permanent Dragon Ball Z game, kind of like how Budokai Tenkaichi 3 was, where, I mean, that was basically like the game to play for like 3 to 4 years until Raging Blast came around. So I think that this game, in my honest opinion, Thundershot, just to close it up, I think this is going to probably be the biggest Dragon Ball Z game since Budokai Tenkaichi 3.
All right, and there you have it. And I'm going to reiterate my point one more time because I think it's important. The hype is as big as you say it is. I think that's my ultimate conclusion on this. It's that you get to decide if it's overhyped or not. If you go in thinking it's going to be, again, the greatest game of all time, you might be disappointed. You're setting yourself up for that. If you go into Xenoverse and like, this should be worth my $60 at least, probably a little bit more, I think I'm going to be extremely pleased with the game and how it performs, but that's me. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think Xenoverse is going to be overhyped? Are you hyped as crap? What are you going to do if the game doesn't live up to your expectations exactly? And do you have anything you want to say before we go?
No, I pretty much have it all, but there is one last thing that I have to say.
Get ready for the Qaaman outro for those of you guys who have never had the pleasure of hearing it.
Please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always say, as a guest or as a host in every single video, to have a great day, guys.
Qaaman's Lens channel's link is in the description. Check it out, and peace.